What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. This is part 2 of the patch update video. If you missed the first part, guys, make sure y'all check it out. I covered the new 3 stars, just the first impressions, quick look at their skills, and I want to know what y'all think about those 5 new 3 stars we're getting in the new patch. But in this video, let's go and talk about the rerun units that are going to be coming through, and that is, first off, the 5-star limited unit Cerise, as well as her artifact Guiding Light. There's a lot y'all need to know about that. And one of the most polarizing Moonlight 5 stars in the game, Remnant Violet. I mentioned y'all might be surprised to hear my take on him. I think he's very good, whereas I think a lot of players, for various reasons which aren't completely unfounded, find him to be super weak and possibly needing buffs, but we'll get to him in just a second. All right, guys, the other units that are coming out as well are Cermia and Alencia, but depending on how much I talk about Cerise and Remnant Violet, who I really want to make sure they're the main focus, being the Moonlight 5-star and the limited unit, we may save that for another video if y'all really want the Alencia and Cermia takes, okay? But without further ado, let's go and talk about Cerise, Remnant Violet, builds, as well as whether or not you should be pulling for them. All right? Alrighty, y'all, let's go ahead and lead off with Cerise because she is much simpler and more straightforward in how I'm going to guide y'all. Basically, long story short, just get her. She's so good in both PvE and PvP. In PvE right now, I'm using her in both the light and dark expeditions, and she's an absolute monster there, but that is partially due to the fact that I'm using Miss Confi. This is Elfelt's artifact from Guilty Gear. If you weren't lucky enough to grab this or you weren't playing at the time, just wait for the rerun. Just understand when you do when you are able to pick it up, it's so good for Cerise. The decreased defense can proc offer skill 1 and skill 2, and the skill 1, if you didn't know, provides a dual attack. So imagine defense breaking a boss and then pulling your highest DPS unit and just crushing. It is random, but you know, if you bring enough DPS, you'll get it eventually. Now, overall, guys, Cerise's kit is a high tempo controlling style unit. Okay, her skill 3, elemental advantage, invincibility for protection, decrease speed and restrict, means with her fast speed, your opponent will never take a turn. And she can also remove immunity or any other buffs that have a duration of 1 turn. So right now in the meta, she's commonly seen at the high levels with units like Ron and Caesarea. She'll really activate Summertime Icera with AoE attack plus the removal of immunity. And then you can also lead into stuns, unbuffable, insane combat readiness on both the skill 2 and the skill 1. Plus she brings some damage with the dual attacks, okay? So overall, just a super fast control style unit that will never let your opponent catch up. A lot of times, guys, your opponent will not take a single turn while Cerise is speed downing, restricting, and just cycling so fast. It's really fun if you like that kind of play style. And there's so many options you can do. You can start the match with a skill 2 with a stun. If you wanted to, you can leave with skill 3, of course, to set the battlefield up with a decreased speed and just start taking a million turns. The sky's the limit on the options, and a lot of y'all, if you aren't running like a pure cleave setup, can just use her as an opener to sort of stop pesky units. But of course, you're going to want to build fast if you do go that route. You're going to want to build fast, period. So let's go and talk about her stat line here real quickly. Mine is only at 275 speed. You might see some legend players say like 290 or don't even bother. Don't worry about that too much, guys. The faster you are, of course, means the more turns you'll take, and the main thing is the safer you'll be. The slower speed you are, guys, you're at risk of getting just sniped out by pesky units like Assassin Sid or other speed contesters that can just one-shot her, silence her, stun her, whatever it might be. So try to build her as fast as possible if you can. But if you can only get 270 like me, if you only get 260, 250, guys, don't let that stop you from running her, especially the lower ranks you are. It's still fine. Just be aware that you're going to need to be a little bit more careful. Now, if you are slow, right, we can use artifacts like her own Guiding Light to sort of add some extra protection and make sure no one can single target attack her, and she can start setting up her debuffs. Now, beyond the speed, and we'll get to Guiding Light here in a little bit, guys. It needs its own section. We want to make sure we have enough effectiveness because she is a control style unit. We have all those debuffs like I mentioned, and then if you can, get some extra bulk on top of it. But the main thing is just build her as fast as possible, especially if you plan to use her as your opener, which I think most people do, or that's really her main goal, is the opener, okay? Now, beyond that, guys, not much else needs to be said about her kit. Just extremely strong. She's good in both PvE and PvP. Let's go and lead into her artifact right now, and it's currently sitting on my landy. That is Guiding Light. Okay, make sure you pick up at least one copy of this artifact, guys. So make sure you get one copy of Cerise, make sure you get one copy of Guiding Light. It is that good. It got buffed, and for a time it was absolutely insane, way too powerful. Now with the introduction of units like Milim, right, it's a lot more manageable, it's not too worrisome, but it is still super powerful, and it can be used on a lot of different rangers, mainly seen on Landy, but you can also run it on units like Operator Sigret. You can use it on Cerise too, like I mentioned, if you're slower, to protect her. The fact that it gives a ranger stealth from the start of the turn, and if you max limit break it, 70% chance to continually just stay in stealth. So if you get lucky, and it's not even lucky, guys, if you hit the odds, you just keep proccing stealth on your unit over and over, and you're pretty much like a Spectre Tenebra. You just stay in stealth all the time, right? If your opponent doesn't have enough reach, AoE attacks to hit those stealth units, you can kind of just take over. And as we all know, on a unit like Landy, that is usually GG. If your Landy can't get hit, she just has too much damage to sort of sustain through, all right? So overall, make sure you get one Guiding Light. If you don't have a lot of bookmarks or powder, just bottle it later. Just make sure you pick up one copy of both Guiding Light and Cerise. All right, guys, that's all that needs to be said about her. Good in PvE, good in PvP, and her artifact is insane. Keep an eye out for Miss Confi when it returns on the next Guilty Gear run. Alrighty, y'all, let's go and talk about the second unit. And this one we need to spend a little time on, Remnant Violet. I picked him up through Galaxy Coins, and as I mentioned, he will be the next Moonlight 5-star rerun unit that's coming up after Conqueror Lilius. So, I kind of mentioned that Remnant Violet is seen by a lot of players as extremely weak and needs a lot of buffs. Now, those aren't technically wrong, but I'll tell you guys right now, he's one of my favorite units, and I think he's so good. I'll tell you at the end. We'll wrap up all our thoughts on whether or not I think you should pull, but let's go and start talking about his weaknesses, and then I'll talk about the strengths. So the weaknesses that a lot of people view: if he doesn't dodge, guys, he's dead. And I think that's the #1 complaint. A lot of players don't like that sort of risky playstyle, that coin flip mechanics. Of course, it's better than a coin flip because we have 50% evasion, and we're going to run a dodge artifact like Shepherd of the Hollow, Moonlight Dreamblade, or Violet Talisman, which give 20% or a little bit higher if it's Violet Talisman. Regardless, though, if you don't get that 70-30 split, if you just lose the coin flip, he dies. We can mitigate that through stats as well as supporting units, which I'll cover in his strengths. But I understand that if you don't like that kind of, risky playstyle, he may not be for you. Now, the second thing that a lot of players, and this is kind of ties into why players are shouting that he needs buffs, is his Smilegate brought in so many units that counter him. So if Car's still saying he's good, guys, that means he's insane, right? Well, let's go and talk about the weaknesses, or the units that counter him. It started with Angel of Light Angelica, right? The fact that she can just remove his buffs, remove his evasion without needing to hit him, means he's a sitting duck. Then you lead into Zahak, who has so much evasion, or anti-evasion. If you also stack like Symbol of Unity, Remnant Violet just straight up dies or is injured to the point of uselessness. Third, we have the most recently released Conqueror Lilius, who, without needing to hit like Cerise, can reduce any buff. So of course his evasion, which only lasts 1 turn, it automatically removes that without the need to hit him. And Remnant Violet, once again, is a sitting duck, meaning he just straight up dies. Because if he can't dodge, he just dies because he is a glass cannon thief. All right. So I think, like I said, either through the playstyle or the fact that there's so many counter units, a lot of players just don't understand or just don't really see the value in him. So with all those weaknesses and counters, why in the heck would Carr still like this unit and possibly even recommend some of y'all watching to pull him with your hard-earned mystics? Well, let's go ahead and just start with the fact that he just does so much damage, guys. The current meta really rewards single target, and Remnant Violet is one of the kings of single target. The Massacre, guys, it's a massacre. He has self-attack up, so we don't need to bring an attack buffer with him, which is really strong in terms of draft versatility, and 50% defense pen, no questions asked, stacking with the pen set, guys. 65% defense pen on an already high multiplier, single target, self-attack up. Nuke makes Massacre just absolutely insane. If you missed my guide on the strongest units and how to counter them, I talked about Bellion. Remnant Violet, for example, very much hard counters Bellion. The amount of damage he puts out, and the fact that Bellion, if we play the odds right, Bellion will not one-shot him if you build kind of similar to me. If we proc those evasion focus, we're just spamming out Massacres, and if y'all just catch that guide, it's so satisfying to just dumpster and destroy those OP Bellions. All right, I want to make a quick disclaimer though, guys. if you compare him to a unit like Apocalypse Ravi, who could be considered another single target bruiser or just dark damage unit, Remnant Violet can't hold a candle to that, okay? Apocalypse Ravi has more utility in the forms of revival, in the form of survivability, and the fact that she has less weaknesses, so we can pick her first pick. We don't have to worry about, you know, hard counters besides really Little Queen Charlotte, and even then it's not that much of a hard counter anymore. But that's just watch that other video I mentioned. Remnant Violet, the only thing he has against a unit like Apocalypse Ravi is his sheer damage potential, which is very, very, guys, it's much stronger than Apocalypse Ravi unless she has a scaled up, you know, skill 3 after units die. So super strong single target skill 3 without the need of an attack buffer. He's just favored in this kind of meta, and he counters some of the strongest ML5s as well, like Bellion. Now, of course, I mentioned, guys, with Apocalypse Ravi, you can first pick him. Remnant Violet, we just need to pick in a safer scenario. So in Arena, Guild Wars, and RTA, right? We don't pick them early. We need to make sure that there aren't those hard counters that either have anti-evasion or anti, you know, buff removal in form of his dodge removal. If we can just set up a scenario like that, which of course won't happen all the time, guys, which is why I completely understand if a lot of people, you know, want a more all-rounder pick for their Mystic Pity. I get it. But those of you that can set up a scenario where he isn't hard countered, you won't be disappointed, guys. He has deceptively high survival if you build him appropriately, if you give him the love and dedication in terms of gear, in terms of mola, and last but not least, in terms of unit support. I want to just show y'all my favorite combo between the two. If you guys were lucky enough to somehow get a Ruel of Light, guys, the combo, these two are a match made in heaven. Will of Light just needs, right? Of course, she needs a unit to protect that can put out so much pressure, and Remnant Violet is the king of that right now. Remnant Violet, of course, benefits from the fact that if you do get unlucky, which a lot of people, this is the main reason they don't like Remnant Violet, you get unlucky and he just dies, Will of Light gives you that second chance at life, and she'll bring him back. These two together, guys, are an absolute terror in both Arena, Guild Wars, and even RTA. It's one of my favorite combos, and a lot of times when I just sort of am not sure of what my opponent's doing, I'll pick Ruel early, and if I get a Remnant Violet later where they don't have those hard counters, it's an extremely, extremely strong combo and one of my favorites overall. If you don't have Ruler Light, though, don't let that be a stopping consideration. Just consider that as an extra bonus if you do happen to have that Light Soul Weaver, okay? So closing thoughts, guys. Remnant Violet has a ton of counters. Remnant Violet has some weaknesses in the form of, you know, if you get unlucky, he can just die. But if you dedicate enough gear to him, if you pick him in the right situations, he'll never be as strong as Apocalypse Ravi in the form of how much defensive and revival utility she has. But in terms of single target pressure and the fact that we can use him in both aggressive and slower comps, Remnant Violet is one of my favorite picks when you just need a strong single target monster. Okay? So I don't want to sell y'all too hard on him because some of y'all just may not like him as a unit. But I'll just say this, guys. Closing thoughts. If he were to ever get buffed, because a lot of players want to get buffed, I am scared for how strong he would become, because I think he's already very, very strong at the moment in the right hands with the right gear and brought in the right situation. He is an absolute blast to play, and he's also very, very powerful. Okay, so just weigh the pros and cons, all the stuff I mentioned, and oh, last but not least, artifact selection. I kind of mentioned the three that are the main use. Shepherd of the Hollow is the best all-rounder. It's straight up better than Moonlight Dreamblade, but Violet Talisman can also be considered. I'll put a image on the screen. If you plan to play that slow comp, especially with Ruel, if you plan to play a really, really long matchup, Violet Talisman can be better because it will scale higher stats in the form of evasion. All right, guys, I think I'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you do end up deciding to pull for Remnant Violet, and make sure everyone, no matter what, pulls for Cerise. All right, I'll catch y'all in the next one, guys. Peace out.